Hi there, my name is Aslı Demiral and I'm a technical specialist with K2 Australia. I'd like to welcome you all to today's webinar on transformation in local governments. A quick info about the format before we begin. We're running these live series every 2 weeks, typically for around 30 minutes. You will be muted during the presentation. If you have any questions while we are presenting, please post them in the questions window and we will get to them at the end. If you want to follow up on anything, book a virtual workshop or suggest a webinar topic, then please get in touch. Today I have K2 partner Inasolve with me. Over the next 25 minutes, Mike will be taking us through some local government solutions they have built on K2. First one is a real-life implementation for City of Casey in Victoria. The asset auditor solution enables the council to audit their 130 sports fields, and they have complete visibility of the audit process end to end. Then Mike will show us their remote working solution. This is a tool to manage all arrangements to enable remote working, which is a hot topic these days. And finally, we will have a wrap up and a live Q&A session. So let me dive right in with the intro. And everyone is talking about going digital and much progress has been made in the industry. But the reality is up to 70% of business processes are still document and email based. Yeah, you might have moved from a paper-based form to a web form, which then circulates as a PDF attachment in an email. And managing processes like this with paper forms and emails creates its many challenges, like no visibility where the process is, or complexity of handling and circulating to form, no reporting available, and many more. And Sports Ground Auditor, which Mike will be shortly taking us through, is a great example on how a solution converts a manual and time-consuming process into a streamlined process. In fact, this application was nominated for Best Use of Technology at Parks and Leisure Awards in 2019. Mike, over to you.
Thank you, Ashley, for that lovely introduction. My name is Mike Scully, and I am Principal Consultant for Inasolve, and we are a K2 partner located in Victoria, Australia. As indicated by Ashley, I'm going to present to you our Sports Ground Auditor solution that we built in 2018. And a little bit of background history on this. The City of Casey is one of the largest growing municipalities in all of Australia. The population is projected to grow to over 400,000, and it's currently up at around 360,000 residents. And it's 400 square kilometers, and they have approximately 130 sports fields. So as you can imagine, auditing that many grounds spread over 400 square kilometers is quite a feat in itself. And when we were contacted by Casey originally, they were conducting their audits with a third-party auditor. And the process at the time, the auditor would visit the council at the start of the month, pick up a clipboard with paper forms attached, go out in the field, and they wouldn't see him for 30 days. And then he'd come back with all the pieces of paper completed. And the council would dedicate 2 staff from the Parks and Recreation team to spend a month reviewing all of the reports and entering them into their asset management system and generating work orders to fix defects and so on. And there was a few problems with this. One of the problems was it was an unacceptable risk. So the auditor would go out to a ground, he'd see a raised sprinkler head on the very first day, and 30 days later, he'd hand the paperwork up, and then it could be another 30 days before they'd actually get to that piece of paper and process it and generate the work order. So it could be anywhere from 30 to 60 days you have that dangerous asset exposed in the field, people playing on the surface with a dangerous trip hazard, and the risk to council of being legal action taken against them was just too great. So Council contacted Inasolve, and we went in, and in the initial meeting, they took us through the process they had, and we looked at the paper forms. And what we generated was an end-to-end streamlined process on K2. What happens with the sports grant auditor? The coordinator for the sports field can kick off an auditing session. The tasks automatically generate, and the technician, the auditing technician, gets a list of tasks in his task list on the K2 on an iPad. He visits the various sporting fields, and they measure the boundary line, they check the hardness of the field and look for defects, and take photos of the defects with the iPad. They can then indicate the problem and annotate on the screen, and all this data is recorded on Council's server in real time. The solution uses SQL reporting services with the data stored in SQL Server, and all of the images that are taken are indicated in the report. And when the audit is completed, and the completed report is emailed both to the auditor and also to the council team to review, and they can also see in real time on dashboards in K2 and in Power BI the completion statistics, and they can actually track during the day which ground the actual auditor is at, because they can see the data being completed in real time. So one of the things that we did for Casey when we built the sports grant auditor was we wanted to give them one central location where they could see all of their reports, all of their forms and dashboards for this solution, because we didn't want them to have potentially hyperlinks just saved somewhere. So K2, out of the box, K2 comes with this lovely interface called K2 Workspace, which you can configure custom profiles for. And what we did, we set up a role for the Park Services team, and we set up all the custom links for them. And they have this nice menu down the side with all of their links in it, and they get, when they open up, they can see basically all of their audits that are currently underway in that screen there. It really gives them a one centralized place where they can go to everything. And the good thing is you can tie down who has access to that particular part of Workspace as well. So only people in their team can go in and see the data that's inside the sports grant auditor solution. And the other good thing is you're not limited just to K2, what you can put in here. I mean, we were able to put in some of their, you can see on down here, some of their intranet pages and stuff as well. So, you know, if you have links to other systems that someone may need, you can also expose those and make them available through K2. Here's an example of one of the Power BI dashboards we built for them. As you can see, we have nice colorful dots that indicate kind of the condition of the different fields. You can see the same thing down here on the right. The same color coding is used on the map, is used in the tables. And when an audit is kicked off, they can actually see which grounds are being audited and when they're being audited by looking at this dashboard. When they open up the workspace, it's actually the first thing that pops up. They can see what's going on. It gives them an overall rating. And one of the nice things is when you click on one of these grounds, you can zoom right into where it is, and you can see on this test points tab, the second tab here, you can actually see which of the test points on the individual sports field is failing or has passed, which I had an example last year where the auditor went out to one of the grounds. There'd been a really big rain event, and it was very obvious that there was pooling happening on the ground, because in certain areas of the ground was kind of really soft on some of the tests, and other areas it was good. So it really gives them that high level visibility, and because they can trend over different months, they can actually see how the grounds compare in January to sort of April and the different seasons of the year, and it can help them anticipate a little bit what they're going to have to do potentially from year to year. The other thing we did was, apart from leveraging dashboards within there, we actually are able to put the reporting services reports in there. And this is an example of what one of the audit reports looks like when it comes through. So you can see in green, all the different points they tested are in green. You get the overall score. And as you scroll down through the report, you can have all the photos of all of the different test points that they did. And you can have all the little defects that were found, if there was a little bit of kikuyu grass or something growing, or whether there was a raised sprinkler head or some sort of damage on the ground. The other thing that this has is by embedding the reporting services into K2, you can actually show and hide the parameters and the different controls across the top bar here as well. But we left that visible for them because if you click on this floppy disk image here, you can actually export that report to Word, PDF, PowerPoint, different formats, which is really useful if they want to then easily pull the data out of SQL and use it for something. They can just export it out to Excel, and it's more relevant with this summary report here, this one, because this gives you a summary of every single ground on one sheet. So if they had to send it out to someone to repair, they could just send the whole sheet out, and it'd be quite easy for them. The other thing you can do is print with this control here. So it gives them a lot of flexibility over how they can use their data, both within K2 and also using reporting services and Power BI for how they can present the data potentially to the rest of their team. So the other one application I was going to talk to you about is the remote working checklist application. Now this was designed around helping companies manage and document their agreements with employees for working remotely. And we saw the need for this arise really strongly in March this year when a lot of our council clients started moving to remote working. When we're talking to one of our clients, they had a paper process where the staff member would go onto their intranet and download a PDF, fill in a form, document their parts of the agreement for working from home. Then they had to sign it. The council didn't have digital signatures, so they had to print it out and sign it. And then at home, they didn't have scanners, so they had to take a photo of it and email it through. And the HR team were just getting all these different photos of forms and stuff like that they then had to try and process, and it wasn't the original form. So we spoke to them, and we very quickly, I mean, I think Nico built this one for us, and he built it really quickly to get it up and running for the customer. And I'll give you a run through and show you how it works. But the benefit of this one is it captures the data, it stores it in SQL, it's visible within K2. You can run reporting services reports to get a whole listing of everybody who's working remotely, and it's all there forever. It's not stuck in a filing cabinet somewhere where no one can see it. So to give you an indication of what this looks like, the premise of this is you start an event. So in this case, it's the coronavirus. We've got in there coronavirus pandemic, but you may have another event. It could be the Christmas break or something like that, where you want to run a skeleton crew in the office. You run an event over Christmas and you document who's going to be working remotely. And the idea is all of the different configuration strings are available across the top here in these different screens. You can configure all the different questions on the form, and it's really highly variable how you set it up. You can change the questions from event to event. It's really very flexible. And the other thing on the screen you can do is you can go and see the user agreements. So I'll show you an example of one of those on the next screen. So this is one of an example of a working remotely agreement and checklist. It's only an example one that I filled in with my own details, well, more or less. But what this first screen is about establishing is what's the remote working site going to be? What sort of equipment do they have? It's to indicate whether someone is actually adequately set up to perform it from home, or do they need to have additional equipment provision for them by the council. You can see here that we have this bit here where they can allocate whether they have that item or they need that. This list of actual equipment is completely configurable in the other screen. And all they have to do is they just click on it and they can double click it, and it'll say that they have it, or they can double click it and it'll say they don't have it. It's really quite simple to fill in on a phone, an iPad, or a PC. The next screen was around agreed working hours, agreed contact methods and frequencies, what the work duties are going to be, and what the strategy would be for them to manage dependents. So most of us have families at home, whether we're caring for an elderly parent, we have children or something along those lines, or even a partner who's working from home as well. What we found with this was people needed to document when they were going to be working remotely, because it's a different situation to going into the office. And to help leaders actually know when their staff are on call and manage that, it was important to document here not just what days, but what hours you'll be working. The other thing we have in there is the contact frequency. So in this example, twice a day at the start of business and close of business, and they're going to contact by phone. The details of the Gs are going to be doing, you might have a very particular role where there's certain things you can only do from the office. So you may be performing different Gs to what you normally do. So the idea of that was documenting what the Gs are expected of that person whilst they're working remotely, because it could be a completely different job. And then, of course, strategies for how to balance their dependence. So maybe we've seen a lot of people who are splitting the day with their partner. So one person might work from 7 a.m. until sort of 2 o'clock, and their partner works different hours, and they balance who's taking care of the children during that time. COVID-19 has given us all this to juggle, and a good thing is I've seen a lot of our clients have been very understanding and really rolled with it, and it's really encouraging to see something that was traditionally quite difficult to manage has become much easier to manage out of necessity. So yeah, this is all around documenting that sort of agreement. So the other thing we have in here is more based around health and safety. So you can see in this part of the agreement, we're documenting ergonomics, electrical safety, what the environment is like, do they have adequate lighting, and emergency equipment. The last thing that you want to have is a large portion of your workforce working remotely, and then after 3 months, you end up with, you know, a large number of work cover claims coming through for people who have neck strain, or they have a bulging disc in their back or something like that, because they haven't been sitting with an adequate and working in an adequate environment. So the idea of this was, and there's actually a section on this form where they can attach photos as well. The idea of this one is to document an agreement between the employee and the company, saying they're acknowledging they do have a good chair, they do have a good desk, they've looked at the diagram of how to sit properly. Yes, they can achieve that with their desk. Their home is electrically sound. It's not got problems with leakage and cords and trip hazards and things like that. They're not working in their garage. They've got good noise levels. They've got a good ventilation, and also one of the other things that's there is smoke detectors are installed, because even though they're now mandatory in new houses, old homes don't have it as necessarily have them installed. And obviously, in the office environment, you can control this situation, and the company takes liability for that. But when someone's working remotely, you don't necessarily have that level of control over it. So the whole idea of this was managing risk and documenting that agreement down so that the company can feel comfortable that they can keep their staff safe and that they can keep their staff productive during this time. So that's a rough overview of how the working remote checklist runs. It's very flexible. It's quite straightforward for us to deploy that. So anybody who actually has K2 and has an interest in this one, we can actually demo it for you quite easily. And yeah, on behalf of Inasolve, and I'd like to thank you for taking the time to review these for us. And I'll hand back to Ashley now for the next part of the presentation. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mike. It was quite interesting and comprehensive, the solutions you have presented. Before we move on to the questions, I have a few reminders. As you might know, K2's Fast Forward concluded last week. These sessions are now available on demand, and there we have also sessions from K2 customers around the globe. A couple of interesting ones are the Microsoft Digital Store session. Microsoft is talking about how they have achieved 25% time savings with K2 in the e-commerce division. Another interesting one is from Shine Lawyers. Their CIO is telling us about delivering the ultimate customer experience through intelligent process automation. This is in reference to their customer onboarding solution. Our next webinar will be on 14th of May, which is in 2 weeks, around the same time at 3 o'clock. We will talk about how K2 can seamlessly integrate with SAP to rapidly increase ROI. So please join us for that. If you want to schedule a virtual workshop with us, please drop an email to Emma and she will arrange that with you. If there are any questions, we will be happy to answer those now.
Asla, we do have a question. I think the first one will be for Mike. Mike, does the solutions that you showcased here work with the K2 mobile app?
Thank you, Emma. Thank you so much for the question. Yes, they are both available in both the K2 mobile and the K2 workspace app. In particular, the Sports Grant Auditor, the auditor uses an iPad mini and they use the K2 mobile app in the field and 4G. And yeah, it just goes through in real time straight into the database.
Wonderful. There is a follow-on question. Can the mobile app tell what your location is at the time?
Yes, it can. So depending on what device you're using, when you're using K2, there's a location services control you can drop onto forms, and that uses location services on your device, whether it's Windows, iOS, Android, and it detects, it asks for permission to get your location, and then you accept that, and it can get the coordinates of your location either from 4G using the cell phone towers, or if your device has got GPS on it, it can use that. If you're on a Windows device on a network, it can actually locate your network and say where you are.
Awesome, awesome. There is one final question before we close off, and that is around the solutions that you showcased, particularly the Sports Grant Auditor, I think. Well, does that integrate with the work order system that they're using?
It does. So when Nico was building that solution, the second component of that was using Technology One's web services, and a custom broker was built for K2 that utilizes Technology One's web services and can insert the work order into their system, and it also attaches the PDF of the audit as well. So when the people are using the Technology One asset module, they see a work order there and it has an attachment on it, which is actually the report as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys, for that presentation. It was really good. Thanks for attending, everyone. We look forward to seeing you on the next session on May 14th. Thanks for your time.